This is the RookTales. Prologue. I got into the car that had picked me up from the airport. Cassie, the director of the event, was driving, although not very well. One of the girls in the car was a redhead. She was 16 and going to be a junior when the fall came around. From what I could tell, she was a very spunky and loud girl, one of those who liked to be the center of attention in a class clown sort of way. Later, I had learned that she was pretty short in height and a libero. She was from Ohio and had told me her name was Kinsey. The second girl in the car was a brunette. I had learned quickly that she was only 13 and going to be a freshman when it came fall. She was very pretty and about average height, maybe a little bit shorter than me. Throughout the car ride to the hotel, she sang to every song that had come on the radio. From what I could tell, she was also spunky, but maybe less than the redhead. This girl was also from Ohio and a setter. Her name, I came to learn, was Emmy. We got to the hotel and waited for about 3 hours until the other players started to arrive. Once everyone got there, we quickly went over rules and then went straight to the training facility to start practices. When we got back to the hotel, we were catered to Olive Garden for dinner. I got my dinner, then went and sat down at an empty table. Girls started filling in the empty chairs. Both Emmy and Kinsey sat down next to me. 3 girls who seemed to be pretty good friends already sat down at the table along with 2 girls who didn't really have anywhere else to sit. The 3 girls who were laughing and joking with each other already turned out to be from the same school. They were all 3 from the same town here in Texas. The first, a very short, not fat, but stout girl, whose name was McKenna. The second was a brunette, taller than the first but shorter than me. She was skinny too, and her name was Chesney. And the third girl was a redhead with a height in between the first and the second girl. Her name was Addie, and she was very kind. One girl who didn't have anywhere to sit was a very pretty black girl. She turned out to be my roommate for the next couple of nights. She was the same age as me and a little bit quieter than the rest of the girls, but still outgoing like I am. She was also from Texas, and her name was Kiana. The last girl was also black. She wasn't pretty like Kiana, though, but she had a personality that was off the walls. Her name was Taylor. She told everyone she was shy, but yet she kept talking and making us laugh and laugh. She told us about her school in Texas. Her town was split into 2 schools. Taylor had claimed that her school was better than the other 2, but that both schools were very bad. We soon found out she was quite the storyteller. Taylor's Tale. West Marshall is a lot different than East Marshall, but also very alike. The 2 were separated by the river running through town. West Marshall was the nicer of the 2. The football team always did better than East Marshall. The school was a little newer and less run down. The people in West Marshall knew this was about their side of town, but they knew they shouldn't and couldn't flaunt it, or they would have to pay because the people in East Marshall were rougher and tougher than the West. If they even thought they heard someone say something about how West Marshall was better, then they would probably pull their knife out on that person at the mall or restaurant they were in. The folks in West Marshall just knew better than to mess with those of East Marshall. Jamisha lived in West Marshall. Jamisha has a boyfriend, Dante, who lived in West Marshall also. They were high school sweethearts. The 2 did everything together. They shopped together, they ate together, they went to football games together, they hung out with friends together. Both of the 2 had friends that lived in East Marshall. Very few friends, but they still had friends from the other side of town. One night, Jamisha and Dante were out to eat at Steak and Shake. When they were leaving, they came across a couple of Dante's friends from East Marshall outside. His friends Jerome and Deshaun were with a group of other guys that Dante didn't know. The group of guys started walking up to the couple at a brisk pace. What seemed to be the leader of the group stepped toward Dante sharply. He had a furious look on his face, and both Dante and Jamisha were very confused. The leader firmly said to Dante, So I heard you've been talking bad about East Marshall. Dante calmly said, almost whispered even. I haven't said anything about it, man. I'd know better than that. Dante's harmless comment had set the leader off. Next thing anyone knew, Dante was on the ground from a punch to the face by the leader. Blood had started running down from his mouth. The leader had gotten to the ground and straddled Dante. He started punching Dante over and over again. The leader's gang started yelling at him, half of them cheering him on and encouraging him. The other half, including Dante's two friends, were yelling at him to just stop. Jamisha was yelling at the leader also to stop and bawling. She didn't know what to do, and neither did the half of the group that wanted him to stop hitting Dante. Then the leader had done something that was completely outrageous and unnecessary. He pulled out his knife and started stabbing Dante anywhere he could. After about 5 stabs, the leader and his gang, except for Jerome and Deshawn, had left. Jamisha, who was crying hysterically, started yelling, "We have to get him to the hospital! We have to get him to the hospital!" So the 3 of them and Dante got into Dante's car and drove him to the hospital. When they got to the emergency room, the hospital nurses rushed him into the operating room. Jamisha stayed by his side for as long as she could. They got to the point that she could no longer follow, and at that point she went to the waiting room with Jerome and Deshawn. They tried to comfort her, but she just kept sobbing. Hours and hours had passed. Jerome and Deshawn finally had to go home. Jamisha needed to leave too and get to school, but she couldn't leave. Jamisha needed Dante to be okay. She wouldn't know what to do without him. If only there was some magical way he could be okay. Jamisha hadn't gone to church since she was about 7 years old. She never prayed, and since both of her parents had passed away, she questioned if there even was a God. But at this moment, she needed faith. She bowed her head right there in the hospital waiting room and prayed. In her head, she spoke to God. "Dear God, please let Dante be okay. I promise I will start going to church whenever I can. I'll even take Dante with me if he's willing to go. I need you right now. He needs you right now. Please just let Dante be fine. Amen." After her prayer, Jamisha drifts off to sleep. She only got about 30 minutes of sleep when the nurse came in to wake her. "Dante is very wounded. That guy cut him up pretty bad, plus the scrapes and bruises from the beating. But I think we will be able to get him back up and going in a couple of weeks. Dante is very lucky. The guy that did this to him was trying to go for his femoral artery, which if cut can kill you in about 30 minutes from bleeding out. But he luckily missed." "Thank you so much for this news," Jamisha said with a slight smile. Within a month, Dante was back at home and almost healed up. Almost every Sunday, Dante and Jamisha went to church. Dante willingly went because he was so thankful that he was still alive without any physical, mental, or emotional damage besides some scars.